Evergreen Cemetery in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, opened in 1854. By the time of the Battle of Gettysburg in 1863, there were well over 400 burials here. During the battle, the gatehouse, the brick building at the entrance of the cemetery, was used as the headquarters for Major General Oliver Otis Howard. The 7th Wisconsin and 24th Michigan had some fighting in this area, and there are some graves in the cemetery that are heavily damaged from the battle. I'm going to take you around the cemetery today and show you some of the notable graves and also explore a little. The first grave we're going to visit is the grave of Jenny Wade. Jenny Wade is known as being the only civilian killed during the Battle of Gettysburg. She's buried here at Evergreen Cemetery, and the house where she was killed at is just down the road. She was killed during the battle while in her kitchen making bread for Union soldiers. It's believed a Confederate sharpshooter's bullet went through her door, killing her. As you can see, it says right here on the grave exactly what I just stated. There's also a little bit of bread here someone left for her. There's also a flag. There are 2 graves in this cemetery that have a flag flying 24/7. We're going to visit the other grave in a little bit, but this is Jenny Wade's right here. Now, the National Soldier Cemetery is located right next to the Evergreen Cemetery, and it's separated by this fence. Here's a fun little fact. This fence actually came from Washington, D.C. It used to be up around Lafayette Square, in front of the White House, essentially. Now, this is believed to be the exact spot where on November 19th, 1863, the platform was where Abraham Lincoln gave the Gettysburg Address. Now, of course, none of these graves were here back then. Most of the graves in this area are from the 1890s onward. But right here is where Abraham Lincoln would have stood, and all the crowd would have been around the stage listening to the speakers of the day. Not just Lincoln, but there were multiple speakers. And this is the view that Abraham Lincoln would have had, same as it was back then. Only he would have been a little higher up on the platform. Now right here, this is a grave that was actually damaged during the Battle of Gettysburg. Not only that, but this guy was a soldier. He died in the Battle of Fair Oaks about a year before the Battle of Gettysburg happened. He was brought back home to Gettysburg to be buried, only to have his grave damaged in battle. Now, the story goes that his father did not want the grave repaired and believed it was just meant to be. So here it is, all these years later, still damaged from the Battle of Gettysburg. Now, this is another grave that was damaged during the Battle of Gettysburg. This is the grave of Jesse Culp. Now, the interesting thing about Jesse Culp is his son, John Wesley Culp, was a Confederate. He moved south to Virginia and joined the 2nd Virginia, and he actually fought in the Battle of Gettysburg and died in Gettysburg during the battle. Culp's Hill is named after him, and his father's stone was damaged during the battle. Now, here are the graves of Anna and Cornelius Heudelin. Now, Anna and Cornelius lived in Gettysburg during the battle. They had a farm on the south end of the battlefield. And on the first day of the battle, the Confederates came through their property. Cornelius came out with a rifle and tried to scare them off, but he was arrested, later released and sent home. Their property was used throughout the battle by both sides and was used as a Union headquarters and a field hospital. Cornelius actually died April 9th, 1865, the exact day that Lee surrendered to Grant in Appomattox, Virginia. But these are 2 locals that you don't really hear about. And their farm is still around today. It's now the Battlefield Bed and Breakfast. You can actually stay on their property. Just an interesting little story. And here is the other grave that has a flag flying over it 24/7. And that is the grave of John Burns. Now, John Burns was born in 1793. He was born when George Washington was the president. He was born in New Jersey. He served in the War of 1812, and he was enlisted in the Mexican-American War, and he tried to enlist in the Civil War. Well, he didn't get in because of his age. When the Battle of Gettysburg happened, he lived in Gettysburg. He was 69 years old, and he took his rifle out and he started fighting. He was actually wounded, shot in the leg, and had to stop fighting after 2 days. But he became a local celebrity after that. He even met with Abraham Lincoln when Lincoln came to Gettysburg. John Burns would live the rest of his life in the Gettysburg area, and he died here in 1872. Now, these would have been some of the original graves to the cemetery. In fact, as you can see, Mrs. Spicer died in 1838. This cemetery didn't open until 1858, which means her body would have been moved here after she died. Her husband, George, died in 1857, so he could have been buried here originally. And then I believe this is a son, a young George, probably their son. But also, this grave would have been used during the battle probably to hide behind because of how tall it was. You would have been able to hide behind it for cover. Not only that, but I was gonna say it looked like it had some damage, but I think that's the design because all four corners look like that. So I think that's just the design of the grave. Here's the grave of Steve Corson, who played offensive lineman for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was drafted in the late 70s, and he actually won 2 Super Bowls with the Steelers. If you remember that 70s Steelers team, or those teams of the 70s for the Steelers, they ended up winning 4 Super Bowls. He was part of 2 of them. Part of that offensive line with Mike Webster at center, Terry Bradshaw behind him, Franco Harris. And he's buried here next to his parents. His father was in the U.S. Air Force, so this is located in the veterans plot here at Evergreen Cemetery. Stephen passed away at only 50 years old from an accident. He was cutting down a tree on his property, and his dog was in the direction the tree was falling, and he ran to try to protect his dog, and the tree tragically struck Steve and killed him. Steve was known to have used steroids during his athletic career, and it caused a lot of heart problems. And once he retired, he started a war against steroids. And he went around to schools speaking to kids about the dangers of steroids and writing books. And he was very passionate about making sure steroids were not a part of society and sports. Alright guys, there you have it. This is the Evergreen Cemetery. I featured Evergreen Cemetery in some previous videos, but I never did a full-length video here. And I figured it was really worth filming and showing you guys some of the more famous graves here. And it really is a massive cemetery. And again, it's often overlooked. A lot of people, when they come to Gettysburg, they don't think about this cemetery here. But the people who lived here before the Civil War and after the Civil War and during the Civil War are laid to rest here. Thanks for watching, guys. Until next time, this is Fixed Image. Same peace.